Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Today we have Rohan, and without further ado, we'll just get started. Rohan, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, I'm fun. I made it to, I guess I finished fall semester of junior year at Harvey Mudd, and then I went on Gap to move up to SF and start a company. Before that, I was at Mercury. I was also at Ramp. I was building healthcare agents my freshman year and spent a little bit of time investing and backing other students. Yeah, I have been pretty tapped into the venture space for a while now and really excited about all things technology.
Yeah, awesome. Rohan, before we get into questions, we have one fun 5C related question,
Okay.
and that is, what was your favorite study spot in Claremont?
That's a great question. Me and my co-founder Andy, I think we spent our entire time at Harvey Mudd just in McGregor. There's the big monitor room in McGregor. That is the go-to spot. You can plug in your laptop, you get a monitor, you can steal one of the mice from the computer lab. That was where I spent my Sundays.
Okay, okay. I'm sure all the Harvey Mudd folks will know exactly where that is.
If
How does
you are a 5C student and do not go to Mudd, you should definitely check it out. McGregor is the best.
All right, man. So we'll get straight into it. First, I'd love to hear about your experience and your time during Harvey Mudd. And I guess the question is, how has that experience shaped the entrepreneur you are today?
Mudd was great. I really liked Mudd. I think that a lot of people talk about how, technology is moving so fast, like AI is really scary for the labor market and hard skills become less valuable. But I think that, with all of these fears and all of this stress, like institutions like Mudd and just going to college in general is really important because I think that when hard skills are, maybe abstracted away to agents and agents are doing things like programming or like FP&A, then what actually really matters is the relationships you build, learning how to be a part of a community and networking, but also just being a well-lived and liked and well-rounded person. I think Mudd gave me a lot of that. I'm a very different person now than I was when I first entered Mudd in 2023. Yeah, I think I just became well-rounded. I expanded my interests. I met a community of really awesome people, especially in the Atwood dorm where I was for 2 years. What else did I get out of Mudd? I think, it's no joke that Mudd is pretty hard from a curriculum perspective, and there's a lot of studying. I think that more than what I actually learned in those classes, I think what I got out of it is knowing that I could do hard things and having the confidence of this is a really scary, daunting problem, but with enough blood, sweat, and tears, anything is really possible. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you mentioned some of the social aspects, and then I really like that last bit of knowing how to work hard. Do you think there's anything besides that from Mud or from the 5Cs that gives you a unique sort of advantage or, trait as a founder?
Yeah, I think that a lot of my day to day is hopping on calls with customers, trying to do sales, trying to do discovery and ideating. And my entire day is just talking to people, to be honest. So I think that having a liberal arts education, which the 5Cs cares about a lot, uh, it gives you this very long term reward where you don't learn some really important hard skills early, but you get all of them within 4 years. It's more so you become a very well lived rounded person, and you're much more interesting to talk to. And I think that was something that I got out of Mudd that my friends at Caltech or MIT did not get. Being interesting to talk to, having varied interests, and I guess being able to connect with other human beings. Um, there are plenty of people at plenty of schools that got this and didn't get this, but I think Mud really shines there.
That's very well put, and I like the word you used, "well lived." That's
Yeah,
good.
well lived.
Okay, and, I suppose one of the first times I met you was through Crescent Fund.
Shout
Um,
out.
Shout out. Yeah, yeah, Crescent, which became Crater. That was a special experience for me. Um, well, partly as you said, meeting so many great people, but you've got to do so many cool things there. And I guess as a general overview, could you tell us about your experience, what Crescent is, and yeah, we'll go from there.
So Crescent was started much before I got into college. It was started in the ZERP environment, 2020-ish, somewhere around there. And it was a student-run venture fund that focused on backing startups in Southern California. And it was fully, you know, run, led, owned, and yeah, just everything was students. and we were investing in, real companies doing real deals. Everything from sourcing to diligence to wiring to back office work was fully students. It was intergenerational. So as people graduated, they passed the fund down and new leadership came in. So it was a really beautiful thing. We got to do a lot of awesome deals before we winded it down. And I was able to meet so many awesome people, kind of like you mentioned, Jay, and you being one of them, of course.
Yeah, yeah. And one thing I always remember you, Sarah, everyone involved, something that they really, really drilled down on was the mission. And I don't know, could you talk about that for a second? A mission of bringing SoCal a student-run VC firm.
Yeah, I think there's one really intentional mission that we had with Crescent, and that was to bring venture to SoCal. There's so much amazing technical talent here. We have schools like Harvey Mudd, CMC, Pomona, like all of the five Cs as a whole. But even schools like Caltech, UCLA, USC, there's so much amazing talent, but everyone moves up to the Bay immediately. Ironic, I know, given that I'm calling in from San Francisco right now. But we're just trying to increase access to capital in Southern California and bridge that gap between some of this top talent in the world and capital. What else? I think the other thesis that we had was that venture is one of those careers that it's basically impossible to break into in college. Uh, it's a very gate-kept career. It's a career that most people don't even know really exists. And it's not something that you find out is an option unless you were born incredibly wealthy or you come from like a long line of founders or your parents are extremely tapped in. I think that's something Crescent did really well was it increased access. It was almost like an equity thing, right? Like more people had access to uh, being able to start a career in venture, as many alumni have gone on to do. But many alumni like me have gone on to start a career founding, and we have access to capital because we've learned so many skills around fundraising.
Yeah, yeah. And the one thing I'd also like to add is all the cool events. Like
Yes, those were a lot of fun.
yeah, the tech week. Yeah, it was so amazing, man. So huge shout out to you, huge shout out to Crescent and the creative folks. Um, and that, I guess, in your time, it took a lot of your time, and you were there for 3 or so years. What was your proudest moment during that time?
I think right after that's such a okay. I think my favorite moment was probably right after our LA Tech Week event 2 years ago. So we brought out a bunch of space founders, some really heavy hitters, Delian from Founders Fund, the Relativity space guys, like just everyone, the who's who of like space tech in SoCal. A bunch of investors came down and we had hundreds of people on this penthouse in LA at, I think it was the Wilshire building. I forget exactly what building it was, but gorgeous venue. Shout out Ramp. They sponsored that. That was before I actually worked there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just such a cool night, and it was just really amazing to see how many people were in the same room. And that sounds dumb to kind of say out loud. And I knew that Crescent was like such a big community, and we had reach across all over SoCal. But most of the work meetings were virtual. Most of the things we did were virtual. So seeing hundreds of people physically in the same room kind of changed my brain, and it for the first time it felt like really, really tangible. And that was a magical moment. Dinner at Bakery after was delicious. Bakery on West Third. That was amazing. Jay, I don't remember if you were there, if you remember that, but I still think about that sometimes.
Yeah, yeah. I had interviews that weekend, I remember,
That's
or
rough.
Thursday-ish, right? Yeah, yeah. I remember the day actually. But yeah, you told me about it and it sounded like a blast. And then I guess one other question is, what was one company that you worked on in terms of the diligence and you decided to invest in them? And yeah.
I think Illuminant was a great deal that we did. It was shout out Antonio for sourcing that. But I was pretty involved in the diligence process, and essentially what they do is they build uh, medtech tools that allow doctors to have like X-ray vision during procedures. So they'll project like maps of a patient's anatomy while surgeons are operating, and they just get more visibility into every precise movement that they're making. So really interesting stuff. I think that one of the reasons it stood out was I was like very involved in it. It was my first like deal that we actually pushed through. So I think it'll always still hold a special place in my heart because it was the first one. But outside of that, I think it felt really tangible in the sense of it's a life-saving technology, right? Like this is the sort of technology that saves lives. It's the sort of technology that makes people's lives really tangibly better. that resonated with me in a way that like a lot of SaaS didn't. Uh, but I'm curious, Jay, what about you?
That's a good question. I wasn't here for it, but 222,
Shout out Kaon.
yeah, and the reason for that is I've I just when I was talking about Crescent and Creator to folks, 222 was a company that, like, if I just listed out some of the portfolio companies that we had invested in from our website, they were like, "Oh, 222, I know them." Um,
Yeah,
I and to me, that sort of taught me, like, the power or power for lack of a better word. I guess it taught me that what we were doing was something real and something, like, actually tangible, like you said, and recognizable in the broader entrepreneurship community. Um, and to me, that, I don't know, brought some pride, I think, of just being involved in that community.
yeah, 100%. Kaon is awesome. 222 is great, and they're absolutely crushing it right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You should download the app. If you're listening this, you should download the app. They're in LA. The events are fun. Definitely go.
Yeah. Okay. And then sort of bringing our conversation to, I guess, the next step chronologically. I think it was around your junior year. Was that right when you got your Neo Scholar?
Yeah,
Um,
yes, that was in it was November, October or something, but yeah.
okay. Yeah. Tell us about that. Tell us what it is, and how it's going so far, because you're still involved in it very, very much.
Yes, I'm actually in the Neo office right now. So, very it's a Neo is a huge part of my life, right now, and I think it probably always will be. And to give a little bit of context, Neo is a huge venture fund in Southern Cal sorry, not in Southern California. It's a huge venture fund based in San Francisco, and the entire thesis of Neo is making really big bets on young people that are just very hungry to win and very, technical, for lack of better words. Like, just, they make people bets, and I think that's something they do better than anybody else in the valley. What else can I say about Neo? Neo has a scholars program that everyone listening should totally apply to. Applications open in the summer, and every year they pick a handful of students after a pretty long interview process, and yeah, provide them with mentorship, resources, and backing to chase their dreams and pursue ideas that they find worth working on. And yeah, Neo changed the game for me in many ways. Neo, the everybody here are amazing partners to have, and yeah, just insanely grateful for everything.
Yeah. And I imagine there is an aspect of community too, working alongside or
Yes.
yeah, seeing so many great people. I wanted to ask what's been the most like surprising thing or something that you didn't expect when you joined the scholarship?
Yeah, I think that to me, the community aspect of Neo, it very much feels like iron sharpens iron. When we're in the office, like we are here pretty late every single day. Like it's a Saturday and I'm here at 7 p.m. But there's a bunch of other scholars, bunch of other people building their own companies here. And I won't lie, like past 7 p.m., past 8 p.m., a lot of times it's not very serious company building and it's kind of just messing around and, cracking jokes and hanging out with people. But I think in those periods of downtime and in those periods of just hanging out and having fun with your friends, um, you actually do get quite a bit out of it. Not just in terms of, feeling the sense of community and feeling, I guess, happier with the company building process, but just picking apart ideas and getting to learn what other people are working on. And there's just so many times that people will be sharing what they're working on. And I see like very tangible connections, or I get an intro from them to a customer that might actually be like interesting for some of the stuff I'm doing. And yeah, I think that was the most surprising thing is it really does feel like a lot of serendipity happens when you get so many talented people in the same room together. It's just increasing the surface area for luck and increasing the surface area for like beautiful things to happen. So
Yeah. Very well put. I love that. And I remember our conversation on serendipity.
yeah.
um, but okay, so you kind of alluded to it there, but tell us about what it's like being a founder.
Ooh, that's a hard question. I'm living the dream. I'm very happy in my day to day, but I'm also working probably the hardest that I've ever worked before. I think that being a founder feels a lot like, your parents left for the night and there's no adults in the room. So it's kind of just you with this objective. What it doesn't matter what your objective is, but you with this like really big, impossible like goal to follow. and there's no one telling you what's right and what's wrong, which is amazing on some days because when something like really cool happens, like you land a huge customer or a demo starts working, then that's all you, right? Like there's a very tangible sense of attribution of like my hard work enables this thing to exist in the world. But it also does suck because when customers leave or you see like huge amounts of churn or a venture round like is just not filling up, then unfortunately the harsh reality is usually that is also on you. Like there's with so much responsibility, like you get to experience amazing upside, but you also get amazing downside. And I think it's something I really enjoy is it's this emotional roller coaster of like some days are amazing, other days are rough. But you know, what's important is like approaching it with a sense of fun and adventure. I think it's
Yeah,
important to be founding with people that you enjoy working with. Shout out Andy. I've worked on everything with him for a long time. And yeah, it's just a sense of fun and adventure at the end of the day.
love that. Yeah, having that sense of courage to do what you wanna do. That's amazing, man.
And if I can jump in really quick, like I think that the word courage is really interesting. I agree with that to an extent because like it does take a little bit of guts to kind of make that leap and leave school. But I do think that most people overestimate like what the failure modes are, right? Most people think that if you try and start a company and it doesn't work out, then you end up homeless and on the street. But, realistically, that's not actually what happens, right? Like, what is the worst case scenario of you trying to like swing really, really big and found a company and it doesn't work out? Like, the worst case scenario is you join another company, right? And if you're a young, hungry, technical, like reasonably intelligent person in San Francisco, usually you can probably find work at some pretty cool startups and tape yourself to another rocket ship, or you go back to school, which is what I was doing before. So there is no downside really, which I think that most people kind of discount.
Yeah. I think that's a really good message to our Claremont students currently.
If there's anything to take away from this, it's that you should swing as big as humanly possible. Because if you swing and you miss, you'll usually end up in a better place than if you didn't swing at all.
Love that. Love that. Awesome, man. And to the best of your ability, or as much as you can, would you tell us what your startup is doing or what problem you're trying to solve?
Yeah, I'll be brutally honest with you. We're still ideating. So we're still like really early in trying to figure out what exactly we want to work on. Um, I can tell you some things that I find interesting. Um, some things I find interesting right now that we've been digging into are enterprise search. So I think that every business has a lot of tribal knowledge. So like knowledge that's in people's heads, knowledge in places like Slack, like communication knowledge, like stored documents and knowledge in emails. Like the point is that there's so much knowledge that you need to do any sort of task. And a big problem is that gathering context for any sort of task is really hard. If you've seen something like Glean, um, so I think the glean space is really interesting. The idea of how do you actually efficiently grab knowledge when it's disseminated across so many different places. And I think there's an interesting why now with the fact that, you know, Glean was traditionally built with the idea of like humans need knowledge to go and do higher order tasks, right? Like you need context and then you then use that context to perform an action, right? Like maybe if I'm doing like some FP&A work and I want to figure out what my like next quarter's earnings are going to look like, then I need to go and I need to grab like last quarter's earnings. That was like a pretty painful process in the past, but with Glean, like you can do it pretty quickly. But maybe as agents start doing future work, then maybe the systems around knowledge retrieval need to be like agent first. We need to build better knowledge retrieval for agents. Um, so that's something that's interesting. I
Yeah.
think that there's very little data visibility into SMBs. What I mean by that is it's very hard to underwrite like how much to actually lend to an SMB. Um, and it's not a model thing. Like the models are not bad for underwriting. It's that no one has any like inputs to these models. If you've seen Dun and Bradstreet, they kind of do this sort of thing, but the data quality is like really sparse. And then last thing I'll leave you with is marketing is a really interesting space. Um, I think personalized marketing is really interesting, and I think that right now the internet like existed in this paradigm of you buy things, but what I see and what you see are the same. But fundamentally, we're very different people, and very similar to how like TikTok and Instagram have started like tailoring feeds. I think that e-commerce is going to become much more personalized, not just in the types of things you see, in terms of like what items you're going to get recommended, but also when you click on an item. I think like product descriptions are going to become really personalized too.
Whoa, that is interesting. Yeah, yeah.
Cool work is happening in all of these spaces. There's now is an amazing time to build a company is kind of my long story short. Like there's a why now for literally every single industry with agents. There is much more opportunity than there are smart people to go and chase it.
If you had a message for 5C students who are looking into entrepreneurship, want to learn more, what would your message to them be?
It's a great question. Let me think on that for a second. I think that all good things start as nights and weekends projects. I think that in Claremont, especially while I was there, there was this like really big feeling of FOMO of like my friends are going out and doing this thing, and that's okay. Like I fell for FOMO many times, and I don't regret it at all because I got so many like crazy stories of doing dumb things late at night or going out, and those were valuable experiences in and of themselves. But I think that being really intentional to carve out time to do things outside of classes is really important because what we talked about earlier was being like a well lived person, and I think that what makes you interesting is not what you're doing in class because everybody around you is doing those exact same things. What makes you interesting is what you do in your 5 to 9 after the 9 to 5, so to speak, right? So if I have one message, well, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to give two. One was what I said earlier, swing as big as possible. And two is follow your interests and start like meaningfully working on things and shipping them outside of the classroom. Don't be afraid to be public about it. Don't be afraid to fail. And don't feel like you need to be full time. Um, yeah, just start shipping as much as possible.
Yeah.
Jay, what about you? What's your message?
My message, ooh,
I'm flipping the script again.
getting me nervous, man. I would say, I think there's two parts. One of them, I would have to agree with you. I think learning how to learn is super important. Excuse me, learning to enjoy learning is super important. So take aspects, whether that's from your friends, from classes, from little videos you see online, and really try to learn about it. Develop a curiosity and explore uh, those different paths that that little bit of inspirational nugget provides you. And then I think there are so many possibilities that little single thing could provide. And then the second part is there's so many cool people here. I
Yes.
think we said it earlier. There's a lot of talents. Talent isn't just about whatever their potentials. It's about, I don't know, how cool they are, what interests they have, and I think learning about people in that way, just being open minded and seeing what you can learn from them, I think that's super important, and that'll take you far, like we talked about earlier.
Yeah. People are the only thing that matters.
Yeah. Well, Rohan, thanks so much for your time. This was an absolute pleasure. You are the first guest of our show, and
I'm excited, dude. Thank you
yeah,
so much for having me. This was a pleasure and an honor to be the first guest. Hopefully, the first of many more to come. And I'm excited to see where you take this, man. I'll be cheering you on from
yes, sir.
just a little bit up north.
Yes, sir. And we wish you the best of luck on your journey.
All right. Enjoy the hawk tonight.